Hello.
Well, hello, Joan Armatrading. Joan, with this, you are setting two great distinctions. One, you become a fellow of the Ivors Academy. And this is the greatest honor that the Academy can bestow. Indeed, it has been giving out Ivor Novello Awards since the mid-50s, and yet you are only the 19th fellow. Indeed, you are only the 16th fellow who was not a Gibb brother, because the Bee Gees were made fellows. So this is the air is rare, is what I'm saying here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to talk for about 40 minutes, and then we're going to take questions from people who are watching this webinar and would like to ask you about your songwriting. And it's a fascinating subject, not only because you are clearly a great writer, but because you were almost a reluctant performer. It was like Elton. When Elton and Bernie started writing their songs, Elton only became a solo artist so that he could get the songs sung. And that's basically what happened to you.
Ditto, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm now going to have a visual aid. You remember the Bob Harris Award ceremony where I showed the 8-track cartridge of Whatever's For Us, her first album. And I will now show my CD, which I clearly bought at Virgin. So you know I'm a fan of that album. And in that, you were writing with Pam Nestor. And now I've seen Pam on a TV special about you, so I know that she's happy. She's not bitter and twisted. But what mental thought process did you go through to say, you know what, I better start singing these songs?
Well, I started writing when I was, I say 14 because I remember that age better, but it's probably from 12, 13. But 12, 13, I was writing limericks and silly little stories and jokes and things like that. So I was 13, 14 when I started. I would have met Pam when I was 19 or something, 18, 19. So I was writing. I wrote on my own. And the way that happened was when I started writing, I thought, great, I'll write these songs. Everybody will hear them. They'll love them and everybody else will sing them. And I'll just be this person in the background, just enjoying, listening to other people. So one day, Pam heard some of the songs that I was writing, and she said she had some lyrics. Would I put some music to the lyrics? And I said yes, and I did that. So that's how that first album. In the meantime, I was still writing. I didn't stop. And so when I started, I didn't really want to be on stage. But once the record company and the album was out, they all wanted me to be the person who was singing the songs. And I wanted people to hear the songs. And I thought, well, if this is how it's got to be so that people can hear them, then I'll do that. But I wasn't that keen on it. And I wasn't that comfortable with it either. You said earlier on I was one of the shyest people, and I really was. It was quite a terrifying thing. But because I was I'm very confident about my songwriting. I'm very confident about that part of it. But because I was so keen for people to hear the songs, I could kind of overlook this shyness and overlook this kind of reluctance to be on stage and hope that people wouldn't mind if they just saw the top of my head instead of my face. And then you just get over it, because all I'm interested in is people knowing these songs. It's really as simple as that.
You and I are probably the only people on this webinar who have been to St. Kitts. And you moved to Birmingham as a child, but I was impressed when we were at St. Kitts that you hardly remembered anything about it. And indeed, you went to meet one woman who'd been a friend of your mother. But would you say there's any influence at all of being in St. Kitts?
Not that I can think of. My mother, my father was from St. Kitts, and I was born in St. Kitts. So I was left there when I was 3. My mother was from Antigua, and so we went from St. Kitts at 3 to Antigua, and I left Antigua when I was 7 to come to Britain. So I don't really, at 3, what are you going to remember about anywhere, really? But in terms of the influence, my big West Indian influence in songwriting is my mother. She was born in Antigua. She's not with us anymore, but she's a very kind of West Indian. So both my parents were very West Indian type people, lovely people, loved their accents. And but she encouraged me in that when I saw the guitar in the pawn shop, she said, let's swap the two prams for them. She wanted a piano in the front room just for her. She bought the piano in, I started writing immediately. So she's, you know, if she hadn't done those two things, I think I probably would still be doing it, but it would have been a longer route. You know, I probably had to wait till I was a lot older to be able to buy some of these things, you know.
It was only when I thought about this subject, is there any West Indian influence, that I thought, well, there is Bottom to the Top and there is Rosie. There are elements, but does that just come from the music that everybody in England heard at that time?
Yes, it's just from knowing music. I mean, all the music, as I say to people all the time, I didn't invent music. So all the music that I'm playing is music that was there. There's nothing that I've invented. There's actually nothing that the Beatles have invented. What they did was garnish the stuff that was there before and kind of made it their own. So that's all I've done. I've taken in what's around me and written my version of that. I try not to be an imitator, or I try not to clone anything. I try and do it in my way. But whatever I'm doing, it's stuff that's there. It's very difficult to be completely original. It's quite hard.
All the words I use in broadcasting have been used before.
There you go.
Now, we remind those who are just joining this webinar, we will ask Joan your questions in approximately half an hour. So keep them coming in and we will turn to them in about half an hour. Joan, Bob Dylan once said that he was a little annoyed that everyone kept studying his words because, of course, he also wrote his melodies. And he didn't think that he got enough credit for his melodies. After all, the songs would not have been hits if the melodies had been terrible. And this also must apply to you. You must take as much time on your melodies as your lyrics, or do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I want, you know, sometimes I listen to a song and I think I like the song, but I feel sometimes that the writer hasn't spent enough time on the lyrics. All they've done is put words that rhythmically work. You know, it does so whatever goes in terms of lyrics, that's what they'll do. Sometimes I get a little bit frustrated with that. And when I write, I try to have the lyrics be something that you could read away from the melody. But I also want the melody to be something that you want to hum and whistle. And you need some kind of tunefulness for that to happen, because you can't whistle. I mean, you've got to have some kind of a melody to do that. So I try and make the song be a whole thing, not just a bit of something that will work, but it doesn't matter.
Now, there is the issue, and everyone watching this must be wondering, the hit single. Because unfortunately, although this classic album was the one that won you the 1972 Most Likely to Succeed distinction from Music Week magazine, but you didn't have a hit single until your third album.
Yeah.
Back to the Night was the second, and then, of course, Love and Affection off the third album. Had you been under any pressure to write a hit single?
No, not that I was aware of. It was probably there, but I wasn't aware of it. I tend to not to be aware of the pressure of stuff, you know, because really, I just want to write. So because I just want to write, there's nobody that ever has to say to me, can you write the next album? And nobody's ever said that to me. I'm usually the person that says, okay, here's the next album. I've written the next album. And I'm always writing. I think this is I've got a new album that will come out next year. I've got, I think this is my 22nd album. That tells you I do a lot of writing. And I just write because I absolutely love it. I love the whole process of it. I love, you know, you never know what's going to start a song. So I love the kind of excitement of thinking, is that the thing that's going to do it? And you do think that. You do think, when you see certain things, you think, is that the thing that's going to make me want to write something about it? And then sometimes you don't think that's the thing that's going to make you want to write something. And then next time you're writing something. And it's a very exciting process, that beginning thing, and kind of trying to make sense of what's in your head, put it down on paper so it makes sense, trying to make sense of the melody so that the melody does what it's supposed to do. Because the melody, the words can be very emotional, but as soon as you put that melody with it, that lyric with it, that's where the emotion really comes through. That's why when you watch a film, you know, the people will speak, you hear the music, and then people cry, because that's bringing out that emotion. So that's what happens. I try and make sure that the melody is fitting the lyrics so that the whole emotion of the song comes through. So I try and spend as much time on each as it needs to have.
The song we were referring to, your first hit single, Love and Affection, has attracted a few cover versions. Can you now, in retrospect, figure out, gee, what is that people like about this?
No, I don't know what it. I do know that the only line, because even I like that, is something that catches people. I'm not in love, but I'm open to persuasion. And I think a lot of people just like that because that's where most of everybody is. At some point or the other, everybody's at that stage of, you know, not being there, but would really love to be. And I think that definitely catches people. I also think they like the male, the bass voice that comes in as well. I don't know. It's kind of not an obvious thing to make somebody have a hit with, but it worked. I'm very happy for it.
But didn't you write a hit single once by request of A&M Records, and that was Drop the Pilot?
Yeah, Drop the Pilot. Well, that's kind of yes and no. I wanted to write a hit single. They wanted a hit single. I sat down and wrote Drop the Pilot specifically to be a hit single. Very lucky that it worked. And I enjoyed the process, but the process is not slightly different, because when I'm writing, I'm not usually thinking, do I want this to be a hit or not? I'm not usually thinking like that. I'm just thinking, do I like this song? I mean, you know, the songs that I've written on this latest album, there was one of the songs, I was thinking, you know, I actually don't care if anybody likes this. I think it's great. And that's how I tend to write. I just write, do I like it? Is it capturing me? Do I get the emotion that I want from it? Is it saying the words to me that I want to hear? And so then that's how it goes. But yeah, Drop the Pilot, I did sit down specifically to write as a hit single.
Now you got a surprise, I know. One of the great stories about songwriting for me is Queen. And they were backstage at Bingley Hall in Stafford. And they were waiting to go on to do their encore. And they heard the audience singing You'll Never Walk Alone. And they thought, what must it be like to write a song that the audience sings to the artist?
Yeah.
And you unintentionally did that. And you know what song I'm talking about, right? The one that the audience sings, Willow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually the best feeling, one of the best feelings you can possibly have as an artist, to have people sing. And, I mean, obviously I'm not the only one. People will sing different artists' songs back to them. But when you do get it, it is a wonderful feeling. And also when you're looking at them singing it, because when you're looking at the audience singing it, they're going through all kinds of emotions themselves. You know, they're hugging each other, they're holding on to each other, the hands in the air because they really like it. There's a joy that comes from it. My mom, that's actually was one of her favorite songs. And she would say to me, Joan, play Willow so I can cry.
Well, people who are watching, who are writers, and who want to know how to write from different perspectives must realize that you are a perspective writer. Time and time again, you say, I am not the characters. I am writing from the perspective of the character. Now, my favorite personally is Rosie. When you're writing about Rosie, and clearly that's not you. And for those who don't know, Rosie is what would now be called a trans personality, and then would have been called a transvestite. And it includes that wonderful couplet, You can't be so chillin' if you act so willin'. Um, Now, what inspires you to take a character to write from the perspective of?
Well, an interview with Nile Rodgers the other day, and he was asking me about songwriting and to kind of tell the story of songs. And what I said to him was, in general, I try not to tell the story of why I wrote any particular song. But two songs that I tend to tell the story about is Rosie and Everyday Boy. And funnily enough, both of those songs are about Everyday Boy is about a homosexual, and Rosie is about a transvestite. The reason that I wrote Rosie was I was in New York, got a taxi. The taxi driver, I don't know, so naive, Joan. The taxi driver said to me, "Have you seen much of New York?" And I said, no, I haven't really seen much of it. He said, "Well, I'll show you around." So he drove me, and I honestly couldn't tell you where this was, but he drove me up to this place, and you could see New York from this hill, wherever it was. You could see the city and the lights. It was wonderful. And then he drove me back, and then he drove me to 42nd Street, and he drove me all around. And walking up the street was Rosie, was this guy in his heels and his little dress, and you know, and actually he wasn't alone. There were a few of them, and I just thought that was fascinating. That you know, here these guys were just walking about, no kind of care in the world, no worries, no embarrassment, no anything, nobody bothering them. It was, you know, it was just interesting, and it made me want to write a song about it. So I wrote Rosie.
And that was a wonderful, wonderful one from an EP called How Cruel. I wondered at the time, now why has she issued a 4-track record instead of a full album? Do you remember why that happened?
Yeah, according to the record company, and this is very unusual. After I'd written those songs, I played them to the record company, and that's very unusual for me because usually they don't hear anything until the whole album's finished. But I played them to Jerry Moss, and Jerry said, "Oh, we've got to get this out. We've got to get this out like now." So that's why that came out, because they said, you know, they couldn't wait for the rest of it. They just wanted to present that, and that was really nice. And I co-produced that with Henry Louis, who was Joni Mitchell's co-producer as well. And that was a lovely guy, really nice chap. As with Joni, you know, it's me and it's Joni who's doing the work, and Henry's there to assist us. And he was quite happy to be that person, and it was a fantastic guy. I really liked him.
You mentioned A&M Records, and for people who don't know, Jerry Moss is the M of A&M Records, and the A is Herb Alpert. Now, during the 70s, I really admired the A&M attitude of supporting an artist for more than one record. Because nowadays, if your first album isn't a hit, there you go. I had an experience where I was in that New Kings Road office, and Derek Green, who was the British head of A&M Records, who I know you know very well, was having a crisis meeting with the police because their first 2 singles had failed. And he said to the police, "I never want to hear you criticize the Carpenters, because it's the money we made off the Carpenters that we're using to promote you." Now that's a good attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was actually Jerry Moss who signed me to A&M, and that's again the beauty of A&M, and all the artists who were on that label really appreciated that you didn't have to prove yourself in that first. They had an artist relation, what's it called, category?
Artisan repertoire.
Yeah, it was where, you know, people were nurturing you. You know, they knew that it wouldn't be record 1, record 2, might be record 3. Let's see what happens. But you weren't kind of beaten if record 1 didn't work, and you were given room, because, you know, everybody knows nobody's going to come out of the traps running at 60 miles an hour. You need to kind of walk, run, trot, and then, you know, really race. And that was what was really nice about A&M, and I certainly appreciated that they gave me the opportunity to do the third album without any pressure. I certainly didn't feel the pressure. You asked earlier, did I feel the pressure? I didn't feel the pressure at all. I was just writing my songs in the same way that I still don't feel the pressure now. I just want to write songs, and the pressure for me would be doing interviews. That would be the pressure, not writing songs.
Well, you have more and more become a one-woman operation, in the sense that you did depart from A&M in 1991. You had a stint with BMG, but really you have recorded yourself. You've played multiple instruments. I mean, you really are becoming Stevie Wonder with different hair. Am I right?
I mean, the thing is, right from day one, right from when I started writing, I could hear what was supposed to be on the record. So I could hear the bass, the drums, the keyboards, all those things I can hear in my head. And I really lucked out because the very first producer that I worked with was the great Gus Dudgeon, who was just a wonderful person, fantastic engineer, fantastic producer. And he recognized that I knew what I wanted. And so at that point, Gus was the producer, if you like. He was Elton John's producer. Elton was selling whatever percentage of all the records being sold. You know, Elton was and has remained a big deal. And Gus was the big deal producer. But he didn't say to me, look, Joan, you know, you're new, you don't know anything. This is what I want you to do. He just said, okay, I recognize that you know what you want. I'll make sure that what you want is what happens. So I was able to communicate with the musicians. I was able to show them things that I wanted them to play and stuff right from the get-go. And I felt very comfortable doing that because I knew what I wanted. And then I met Glyn Johns' third album, the Joan Armatrading album. Again, you know, Glyn recognized that I knew what I was doing. Another fantastic producer. And so we were able to work in a way that just allowed me to do what I needed to do and know that I knew what I wanted. And that's really helpful, very helpful to have lucked out with two producers who didn't try and kind of steamroller over what I was trying to do. Didn't say, well, you know, you're the girl, you don't know what's happening. We're the men, we've had all these hits. What do you know? Shut up and shut up.
Yes, and Gus had Space Oddity by David Bowie, as well as the Elton hits. And She's Not There by the Zombies, believe it or not. Now, both of these men were in the tradition that was started by George Martin. And George Martin said that he was the first producer not to try to duplicate the sound of the live performance on record, but to duplicate what was in the artist's head on record. Very different, very important. And of course, George Martin, needless to say, it worked spectacularly. So these men were we can either call them translators or mediators, until you could do it for yourself.
Well, kind of no, because even though they were there, I was doing it. You know, I would play parts that I needed the guys to play, and I would actually, I used to do my demos, so they would hear the demo in the first place and hear what was supposed to happen. And on the demos, I would play everything and stuff. So it wasn't just a matter of them trying to get out of me something. I kind of knew what I wanted. And I think because it's always been like that, going from working with producers to working on my own wasn't a big transition for me, because it would have been if it was something I had to really learn and figure out, okay, now this is how you do it, and how do you make arrangements, and I didn't have to do that. That's what I was doing from day one, right? Even before I met producers, all those things were in my head. So, but you know, I wouldn't have missed working with any of the producers that I've worked with, because whatever we do in life, the people that are there with us at the point of whatever it is we're doing, they have played a part in the thing being what it is. So if you're in a room, a great example of this is a DJ once said to me, he said, you know, Joan, I've got this producer and I can't tell you what he does. He said, I pick the songs, I do all the playlists, I'm doing the program, I'm playing everything. He says, I don't know what this producer's doing. And then he said, one day he was thinking this and the producer came in and said, would you like a cup of tea? And he said, at that moment, he knew the importance of the producer, because without that interruption, it wouldn't have made him do this other thing. And without that interruption, it wouldn't have relaxed him more to be able to do what he was doing better. And without that interruption, it wouldn't have been a calming thing or actually the input is more important than I realize, you know. And so everybody who interacts with people, they are a part of that person's life. So all the people that have been on my albums, doesn't matter how much I've done, doesn't matter how much I've said this is what you're going to play, doesn't matter. If they're playing it, it's important that they're playing it, you know. And you can say to a keyboard player, I want you to go over to the piano and just hit a C, just the note C. You can say that to 10 keyboard players and you will get 10 different interpretations of that hitting that C. Some will hit it once, some will hit it 3 times, some will hit it really loud, some will hit it quietly. You know, you're going to get their input no matter what you're saying to them, no matter how much you're telling. That's why when you listen to orchestral pieces, you can hear a Vivaldi piece for as many times as you like. You hear different orchestras, you hear different things. But it's the same piece. They haven't written it. The input isn't you know, the physical writing of the piece of music, but the input is their being, you know, and it's very important. All of that is really important. So although I say all the time, you know, I do everything, which I do everything. I can't do everything on my own. I can't, you know, write, sing, play, arrange, and then put the record out, and then go and and then go, you know, get the radio station to play it, and then tell the audience it's time to go. I can't do all those things. I can only do so much. So everybody that's here for all these years, it's because of all the people. It's not just because of me. I know that.
If I may just mention one production flourish, which I have loved for 48 years, and that is on Whatever's for Us, and it's what Elton called the floaters. I don't know if you know what I mean. It's the strings that come in on It Could Have Been Better.
Yeah.
And there was a point at which you realized, oh, there are strings. But when did they come in? Because you don't notice them come in. They're just there. They floated in. Now, that was a brilliant moment.
Yes, absolutely. I love that song anyway. That's the song Pam wrote the lyrics to, and I wrote the melody and them singing it. And I love that song. And a lot of people love that song. There's actually a great dance thing that I've seen on YouTube with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers dancing to it. It's really nice.
Well, that is fantastic. And you do break the mold in so many ways. And one is in one of your songs that I love the most, Blessed. It's less than 2 minutes. You didn't think, oh, this isn't long enough, I've got to pad it out. No, and in your mind, did you think, uh-oh, this isn't long enough?
No. I'd said it. I mean, that's what you've got to do. You've got to say the thing. Don't pad it out. If you said it, you kind of said it. And I wrote Blessed because I feel very blessed. I feel that, you know, I'm lucky, but it's kind of more than lucky. I feel very blessed. I've been given a talent, and sometimes, you know, I've said it before, I can't even take credit for my talent because I had nothing to do with it. It was just given to me, and it's my job to do justice to it and, you know, make it work, not to waste it. That's my job.
Yes.
So I feel blessed.
Like Woody Allen, who is now a controversial person, but everyone agrees he's a great human being, once said he cannot take credit for his talent. He can take credit for working at it. Yeah. And that's what you do.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that is extended, of course, to building a home studio and you must try very hard to separate work mode from Joan mode. I mean, you've got to have a personal space, and the work is out there across the lawn or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be at work all the time, and I'm not at work all the time. I'm very often thinking of a song, but I'm not thinking of a song 24 hours a day. So I don't want to be surrounded by this creativity thing. I don't want to be stifled by it, you know, I want to enjoy it. So you need that separation. And I've actually always been really good at making that separation. I don't find that difficult at all to put the two to the side.
There have been a couple of times when you have written kinds of songs for a purpose. One was for stage at the Donmar, and the other was your blues album,
yes,
which many people here, being in the UK, might not realize was the first #1 blues album in the American blues chart by a British woman, and you won a Grammy. So these were two groups of songs, shall we say, that had a common concept.
Yeah.
In each case, how was that different, or was it different from regular album making?
Well, I wish I had won a Grammy. I was nominated for a Grammy, and I'm
Yeah.
first, again, British woman to be nominated for a Grammy in the blues category. But as with Drop the Pilot, the blues album, I sat down to write specifically a blues album, and I thought I would write a trilogy, blues, rock, jazz. So I thought this is like a project. So it was quite difficult, because usually when I write, I jump. You know, I'm writing a jazz thing, then I write a pop thing, then I write a blues thing, then I write a reggae thing, and I had to remind myself at every song, this is a blues album. Don't stray into some other thing. So it was difficult, but really, really enjoyed doing it. And that was just for me. With the Donmar, with the Shakespearean project, which was The Tempest, I was asked to write the music for the Tempest, and it was an all-female cast, and they had a trilogy as well, actually. But this was for the Tempest, and it was quite specific what I had to write, in that I had to write a sea shanty and something that expressed the wedding, and something that expressed the dance, and so it's quite specific. It wasn't like go and do what you want, but that was really nice to do as well. It was its own challenge as well, but in a funny way, I actually found it quite easy. Should I be saying that? But I did.
Okay.
I did find it it was very, very quick when I wrote all the bits for it.
You were very generous when I asked you in the late 80s to join these 2 evenings at the London Palladium, which I was organizing for Amnesty International. And you came on and did I Love It When You Call Me Names. And it's in the film of the event. In retrospect, why did you think that was an appropriate song? Was it just because it was an audience stirrer?
Yeah, I just wanted to show off playing the guitar. That's kind of it, really, because it's just one of those songs that you can play some really nice acoustic guitar in. And I just wanted to do that, really. Because, you know, who knows if it's a song that people would want to hear, but I like how the guitar sounds in that. And as it turns out, that's a very popular song, more popular than I would have thought it would be, but certainly live, it's very, very popular. And it's talking about a little man with a bigger woman, and she's really not very nice to him, but he's quite likes it.
Well, it went down well on the night, let's put it that way. But you have always said that your taste is so broad that you like Led Zeppelin or other guitar groups, no reason not to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, music is, sometimes people will say, oh, why do you think, why do you kind of, not some people, sorry, people sometimes have a go at people who like the Birdie song. And I think, well, why would you have a go at them because they like the Birdie song? Maybe they went to whichever holiday place they went, and when they met, it was the Birdie song that was playing, and that's their theme now. Nothing wrong with that. That's, you're laughing, but there's nothing wrong with that. And I actually spoke to a journalist who said that her friend has the Birdie song and the whole thing of that on their fridge because that is how they met. Over the Birdie song. So you've got to be open to all these types of music. So I like Led Zeppelin. I like Amy Winehouse. I thought was absolutely phenomenal. I just loved Amy. I love the Killers. I love who do I like? Oh God, there's so many people. I love Wiz Khalifa. I love Post Malone. I think he's great. God, so many people. It's hard to sometimes, come up with, but there's so many that I think this is really nice stuff. And sometimes you don't like everything that they do, but there's going to be something that's, going to carry.
You've just made me think of Rag and Bone Man. Because what people don't know, and I will turn this over to our viewers after this observation, but he got a real breakthrough supporting you at your invitation. Am I right?
Yeah, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know how to answer this really because he doesn't talk about it, so I don't know whether he wants me to talk about it.
Okay, well, let's just put it this way. That Joan had a tour where all the support acts were local artists. And he made such an impression that he went on and became as big as he has become. Okay, that's the end of that. Let us now turn, and this will test whether this pushing the Answer Live button works, to a man called Gavin G. And Gavin...
I don't want to talk to Gavin G.
Oh, no, okay, all right, well, let's move on to Jan. No, I know. Okay, Gavin G, are you there? If not, I'll read your question. Okay, he may have disappeared by now because he dialed in at 4:06. Oh, sorry, we've been dull since then. Sorry. Anyway, how much time do you have to practice playing guitar to keep up the incredible standard that you play to live?
I actually don't practice. What I do is write songs. And because I'm writing a song that requires that particular way of playing or that riff or that whatever, that's the practice. So I don't sit down and say I'm going to practice for 3 hours. I can't really do that. It doesn't seem to work. If I try that, I'm going to write a song. So that's my practice. My practice is writing. Well, let's go to John Monk, who says, I know this question is almost like asking which of your children is your favorite, but does Joan have a favorite album of hers or one that she is the most proud of? It's always going to be the one that I'm about to write. That's my favorite album, the one I'm about to write. So I've just finished writing one, which will come out next year. So I'm now looking forward to the one that I'm about to write. It's really difficult. You can't say, really. Okay. Now, it's tough to call this person out because they say anonymous attendee. As an artist myself, I am often asked if my path didn't lead me to music, what would I have done with my life? Is this person there? No? Okay. Is anybody there? Yes, I know. Well, the questions are coming, believe me, but that person didn't come up live. Well, what would you have done otherwise? Well, I was very interested in law. So I would have probably gone into something to do with the law, working with solicitors or something like that, with courts or something like that. Even though I didn't get the opportunity to pursue any aspect of that, that's what I think I would have been doing if it wasn't for music. Oh my gosh, here's one that's very moving.
brings in what you were saying about the Birdie song, about how some innocuous songs have profound meaning to people. This is truly profound. Kirby Grimley. Hi, Joan. I was introduced to your music by my sister Jane, who was tragically killed in a car accident 40 years ago this month. Your music is a strong connection to my deceased sister, so I cannot begin to tell you how meaningful your music is to me. Much love and gratitude, Kirby Grimley. Well, of course, there we introduce the idea that something you have done means a great deal to somebody else, and you may not even know it.
Yeah, and that's the most flattering thing that can happen to an artist, is that people say, I'm connected to this song because it expresses this for me, or it brings me closer to somebody, or it allows me to tell somebody something that I wasn't able to tell them with my words. You can't get better than that. It's a very flattering thing, and sometimes, you know, you can see why certain artists get big-headed, because if people are telling you that, how much better can it get, really?
And Dave from Cardiff says, I still love the Show Some Emotion album. It has such a warming flow to it. Was there a particular influence behind those songs?
No, it goes back to the question, the answer that I gave my learned friend a few moments ago. It goes back to what I said to Nile Rodgers. I tend not to, you know, say that this song was written because of this, or because then I want the listener to have their own interpretation, and I don't want to interrupt that. I don't want to say, well, the reason I wrote it was because it was as I said to him, I don't want to say I wrote it because I was looking at a white dog in snow, looking at a polar bear. You know, they might think it was a black dog in cold looking at something else. I mean, I don't need to interrupt their thoughts. Let them get what they need from it.
Here's a question. I know the answer to this one. I read once that you bought a ranch to overcome your fear of horses.
No.
Is that true? And if so, do you still own it? And do you ever ride? I have a pony in spite of being kicked half to death as a child.
Oh, no, I'm sorry about that. I hope you're all right. No, I've never had a fear of horses. I love horses. They're beautiful creatures. And I've always thought, you know, they're big, magnificent animals, and they just let people lead them around by the nose. You know, you think, why are you doing that? You could just crush that person. But they do it, and they're gorgeous things. No, never had a fear of them. But no, I don't still have the stud farm now.
Hi, Joan. Uli is writing in, following you since the 1978 Rock Palast night.
Okay, yeah.
You have given me countless moments of sheer pleasure while listening to your music. Do you consider something like a 50-year Jubilee collection? Wait a minute. It is going to be 50 years in 2 years. Oh my God.
That's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is true. That's so true. Yeah, I don't know. That might be an idea, you know. Thank you for putting that forward. That might be something to think about.
Yeah, because you've got a new album next year, which is 2021.
Yeah.
50 years will be 2022.
Yeah, because my first album was 1972. Yes.
Yeah. So you won't have to work for a year. You can just put out the 50-year collection.
You know, I kind of like that, you know.
Uli, you have changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now here's, again, people have favorites. They mean so much to them. Here is someone who doesn't give their name, but says, I have a favorite song, I'm Lucky. And I saw you with my best friend on your last visit to the Keswick Theatre, Glenside. Well, I'm lucky. Do you walk under ladders?
Well, it's just like blessed. I feel very lucky. It's the same thing. People very often say to me, you don't write songs about yourself. Yes, when you're writing stuff like I'm lucky, me, myself, I, certain things, this is me, blessed, this is me. Those are the things that I feel that I want to express about myself. And I just feel a very fortunate person, I can write songs, I can sing the songs, I can do stuff for myself, and I get to do that and make my living. How fortunate is that? Because it's not everybody who gets to be in the position of doing this thing that they absolutely love and can't imagine doing other things. And this is how they make their living. I mean, how lucky can you get?
I feel the same way. God, if somebody else says to me, what else would you do? I think, well, I would have gone to law school. Maybe I would have met you there.
There you go.
Now, the same person, Mark Taylor, says, you are missed here in Pennsylvania, and I hope you come all the way to America in 2021. Well, what are the odds? Or are you going to be using that blue screen a lot?
What are the, who knows what's going to happen? I want to think that people will be going on tour again in 2021, but we don't know. We have to just wait and see, really. What I do know is that when the opportunity to tour extensively comes around, I won't be touring extensively. Because, just let me remind people, I was 22 when I started in 1972. I'll be 70 this year in December. I love the Rolling Stones. Great, they can do it. I don't want to be doing 18 months tours at 70 or 71 or 2, 3, 4, 5. The odd gig, yes, but I'm not touring around. I really, really enjoy it. I love it. And I want to stop doing that in that way at the point of loving it. I don't want to do it where I think, oh no, not New York. I don't want that. I want to think, yeah, New York. And that's how I've been all my touring life. It's Sheffield, yeah, Humford.
What do you think of the state of the music industry today? And of course, this relates to all writers and recording artists, getting your music to the public. What do you think about the current state of conflict the world is in right now?
Oh, well, that's two different questions, isn't it? But in terms of music, I mean, people are always saying that the music business is dead. And of course, it will never die because people need music. Music is like breath. Without music, somebody's going to have to invent it. You're not going to not have music. But when you hear somebody whistle, nobody said to them, you've got to learn to whistle. They just naturally whistle. They want to make music. They want to have a tune. So it'll always be there and people will always create. And there will always be people who rise above all the others because they're so much better in that creativity department than others. So you're not going to lose that. That's not going to go away. So for me, the music business is always healthy in terms of creativity. There's always people coming through that do good stuff. I mentioned Post Malone. I think he writes really good songs. People might be fed up of Ed Sheeran, but Ed Sheeran writes really good songs. You might get fed up that he's written so many and it's so popular and it's, you recognize it as soon as you hear it. What's that matter? He writes good songs. He has a great career. He's another person who's touching people. One of the best things I ever saw was Ed Sheeran. I did not live, I wasn't there, but I saw it on the television. And he was singing his song, I think it was the 18. And there was a girl on the boyfriend's shoulder and she was in heaven. And I could tell straight away she was a fan for life, because he'd captured her. He'd embraced her. He was the man now, and that's a wonderful thing. And so there'll always be people like that. And that applies to all genres of music. There'll always be, we had Nigel Kennedy in the classical era when everybody was totally in love with him. You've got Jamie Cullum, who plays great keyboard in the jazz department. People love him. There's going to be people that people will always really gravitate to. So I'm not worried about the music business in those terms. What I'm worried about is that we have a situation now where we're in a pandemic and everything's closed down and music and just about everything else can't operate in the normal way. And that's where the worry is. How do you get back to this normal, everybody at the concert and being very close together, and the atmosphere of it is generated by the person to the left or the right of you. That's the part that you got to try and get back, but it's very difficult because who knows what? That's the problem.
Willow won't be the same if one person over there is singing and another person over there. And actually, Beverly Knight found this out when she did an evening at the London Palladium. Andrew Lloyd Webber, who owns the Palladium, was testing out what it would be like to have a show with only 28% of an audience. And something that was not foreseen was that Beverly said she couldn't tell how she was going down until she did Memory from Cats, and everybody gave her a standing ovation. And then she realized, well, okay, even though they're all over the place, they're standing up, so I know they like it. But the artist can't feel what the audience is feeling.
No,
you there.
Yeah, you need, it goes back to that thing that I was saying. You think you're up there being this flash artist and everybody's adoring you, and but it's a two-way street. They're adoring you, but you need them to adore you. You need them to say, you're wonderful. Oh, that's my favorite song. Do this. I can't wait. Let me give you a standing ovation. Unless all of these things are happening, and unless all of these people are kind of telepathically saying, let's get to this thing at the same time. Unless this is happening, you can't get that incredible atmosphere of a live concert. You won't get it by this separation. It's just not going to happen. I saw the V concert on the television and I thought, what am I looking at? I don't know what I'm looking at, because everybody was in their little pods and they were doing their best to dance and cheer, but it didn't translate. And the people on the stage were doing their best, but that didn't translate either in the way that it's supposed to. So we as entertainers need the audience to be fully participating in what we're doing. That's kind of how it works.
Two people asking a similar question. Your writing has always best been in the personal sphere, but we are now in a world where everyone wants to talk about politics and society. Are you tempted to do so, or have you done so?
No, I'm not. That's the answer.
Okay, well, that's the answer of that one. Okay, fine, done. We move on. To what extent has your co-production influenced your writing process? Oh, I can see there's an interesting thing here. If you have discovered how to do something new technically, do you then necessarily want to do it to show that you can do it?
No, because the song is king. And when I write, that's the focus. The focus isn't the technology. The focus is, am I writing words that will touch me, first of all, and then translate and touch people? Am I writing melodies that people will want to hum and sing and, communicate with each other via that song? That's the thing. I'm not really interested in all. I mean, I love technology and I use it and I'm up on it, but it's not the driving force of my songwriting. I still write the song on the guitar or the piano. It's still that simple. Can I play it without anything else happening? Can I stand on stage and play that song with just the guitar? Will people like it? Will it work? That's it. Now, Tony and Peggy from Ringwood, obviously in a bubble, are asking, why did you choose not to have a band behind you on your last tour? Is it purely financial? No, I just fancied doing it. I'd actually never done it until I did it in 2014, was it? When I started in 72, I did do a couple of gigs on my own. I went to America in 73 and I did that on my own. I was there for 3 months. Stuart Copeland was with me. He was tour managing me. So it was just me and Stuart and I. But apart from that, I've never done a solo tour. And I just thought it might be quite nice to do that. And I really, really enjoyed it. I absolutely loved it. So I did it again.
Well, along those lines, here's Mark Taylor again, asking, and I wonder if he's talking about Pino, who was the bass player that went on the road with you in the early 80s? I met you all at the Strathallan Hotel in Rochester, New York.
In the 80s, that could have been Jeremy Meek. What color was he?
That
if,
is
it was,
not
if
mentioned.
it was white, it was probably Jeremy Meek. If he was of a color, it might have been Durban.
Okay. Now, here's someone who wonders, is there any chance the 5 studio albums that are not on vinyl will appear on vinyl sometime?
You need to ask the record company that, really. I don't know that.
Out of all the bazillion places you have played at, do you have anyone that really holds a place in your heart? I would hope the London Palladium would be nice.
You know, that's a question I get asked very often, and people might not believe this, but I find every gig a wonderful experience. I just find every, you know, whether it's in a small venue, a large venue, loads of people are into it, people are not so into it, whatever it is, I just think, God, this is great. Look at this. Look at where I am. I like this.
Well, let's have 2 more here. One comes from Alex and Chloe, also obviously in a bubble. Do you have dry spells or writer's block ever? How do you work through it?
Honestly say I've never had writer's block. What I have is maybe sometimes I just write horrible songs, but I'll write them because I think if I start a song, I have to finish it. I don't have loads of unfinished songs knocking around. That's not me. If I start a song, if I think, oh, Joan, why did you start this? I'm going to finish it, and then I'll chuck it in the bin. I don't use it. But writer's block, no. There's never a point where I think, oh, I'm never going to write again, or I can't write, or what am I going to say? I don't really have that. But I don't have. I'm not forcing myself to write all the time. I just write when I feel like it, but I'm just very lucky that I very often feel like it. So it's that. It's the best thing in the world to be writing. So I just enjoy it. It's not a chore.
To close, let's come full circle with Grace Richardson, who says, hello from St. Kitts.
Okay.
Do you listen to any Caribbean artists?
No. If you mean, do I purposely sit down and say, let me put on this Caribbean artist? No. I mean, if I hear stuff, yes. But, and I have to, although I've mentioned lots of people, different people that I really enjoy, I actually don't play a lot of music. Probably because I'm doing a lot of writing, but I don't play. I'm aware of everything that's going on, and I like to be aware. I like to know. I like to kind of keep up to date. But at the same time, I'm not, I haven't got a big record collection and never have had. And most of the records that I've got were given to me. I'm not a big record buyer, and I don't download a lot of stuff. I'm not streaming stuff all the time.